evening, everyone. I hope everyone's having a good day or a good week, a good evening. Thank you for attending our event tonight. I appreciate everyone's time here. Doesn't this space look nice? Let's take a second and thank our volunteers for setting up for us, setting up the food and everything. Thank you for your support, as always. My name is Irene Chan, and I'm the program chair at the New York Book Forum. The New York Book Forum is a 501c3 nonprofit whose mission is to build bridges between the publishing world and the public. As part of our mission, we present a different program almost every month throughout the year. It's part of our mission to create opportunities for important conversations to happen and to curate events that we hope are informative to the book publishing world and to anyone interested in books, whether you're a publisher, which many of you are here, a writer, a bookseller, an educator, or just an avid book consumer. We are a huge industry. Publishing is a huge industry, and it is vast. But together, I think we create a community by participating and sharing our knowledge and by having conversations. I appreciate everyone being here tonight to listen to conversations and also to have them and participate. So tonight, our program is about art and writing competitions. Art and writing competitions and contests serve as really powerful platforms for discovery, recognition, and professional growth. Competitions cultivate our creative communities and support emerging voices. They're cornerstones in sustaining a vibrant culture and creating opportunities for stories that might go unheard. And tonight we have with us two speakers who do the work behind the scenes to bring to the public these competitions. And we're going to talk about what competitions bring to creators and the publishing community and what we can do to either participate or to support these very important endeavors. So our speakers today are Christopher Wisniewski, Executive Director for the Alliance for Young Artists and Writers, which hosts the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards, one of the most important competitions and awards for young students in America to participate in. These awards have recognized talent in notable artists such as Amanda Gorman, right? Yeah, Stephen King and Andy Warhol. Yeah, for almost a century. How old are the awards now? 102. And we have Lauren Becker Macios, author of Calling Me Home, Somewhere to Go, and I Almost Was Animal. She is a participant and winner of multiple poetry competitions. Her first book, I Almost Was Animal, was a winner in the 2018 Writers Relief Water's Edge Poetry Contest. And her latest book, Calling Me Home, is forthcoming in May 2026 by Holiday House. Let's give our speakers a round of applause today. Come on up. I'll sit on the side. Makes it a little easier. Pass. All right. Let me get my notes because I don't memorize these things. All right, let's start by tell us how you got started in competitions. Like, what was the start of your involvement in competitions, either organizing or participating in them?
Sure. Well, it's good to meet all of you. Thanks for coming out today on this cool sort of early winter November evening. So my first exposure to the Scholastic Awards and really to the idea of competitions in a formal way was in 2012. At that time, I was the director of education at the Museum of the Moving Image in Astoria, Queens, and had been doing that for 6 years, stayed at the museum until 2016. And I was invited to be a national juror in the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards in the film and animation category. Through my work at Moving Image, I juried a lot of student film festivals, and then I was also something of a film person, and also sat on juries at film festivals around the country from time to time. So I had exposure through that work, and eventually my career led me to being recruited to lead this organization, and I've been here since 2019.
Wonderful.
That's a cool path. And I love the Museum of the Moving Image. I I'm Lauren. Thank you all for being here. So as Irene I shared with you, I have won book awards, and I also was in arts administration for quite a while, facilitating awards. So I was program director of both Mass Poetry and the Poetry Society of America for a while, and executive director of Mass Poetry. That's a regional poetry organization in Massachusetts. And both of those host awards, especially PSA, but both of them do. And so I have kind of a twofold exposure of when I started submitting and when I started facilitating. And I first won a poetry award in college, which was just for a singular poem, but that blew my mind. I did not see that coming. It kind of stunted me for a while because I thought, like, how could I do that again? So I didn't write for a while, and I had to kind of get past that, which is a strange thing that you wouldn't think could happen. But I don't know if you've experienced that or seen that happen with anyone. But then in the poetry world, a lot of work is done through a lot of work is published through contests, just because it's so heavy in independent presses, and there's not, they're not banking on big book sales. So there's a submission fee for a contest. You win a contest and get sort of that prize money, and the prize money goes to also funding the contest and the book. So that's just sort of been my pathway into poetry. And
How long before you wrote again after you won that first one?
oh, maybe a year or two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does Carl Jung call it fear of flying or something like that? No.
Is it?
Is it like, I think it's called fear of flying, like you succeed in something, or like you do something that's like really great, and then you're afraid to like fly again because you don't want to fall.
Exactly it. Yeah.
Well, thank you for telling us about both your starts.
Of course.
What do you think are some of the greatest benefits of competitions? Like, what did it bring to you to participate in?
Would you like to? In terms of a participant, I think it's really, for me, it's feeling vouched for if you win. And it's, if you don't, it's still that you've put something out there, and that's all part of the process. Like it would be a wild world if you won every time. You couldn't. And so also just the way those are structured, knowing that in submitting to those awards, you are helping those independent presses and other poets get their work out there. I think that's meaningful. So even, when I look through and think like I have a manuscript and I'm going to submit it 10 places, I'm probably going to get rejected at all of those, and I'm going to keep going because it takes, years. I was probably rejected 300 times for those books over the course of 10 years. So I'm an award winner, but I'm also a very big award loser. But each of those losses, there was a winner for. And so I feel like in that way, it's sort of poetic citizenship. And you're, this literary community, you're helping that function.
Right, you're building your network of feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, what do you think? What are some of the greatest benefits of competitions?
I would amplify that. I think that there is great value in being encouraged to package your work for an audience that is not necessarily in your immediate network, to think about how you are going to present yourself through whatever the entry or submission is, to make certain that that's an authentic reflection of you, and at the same time to make certain that it's reflective of what the competition is for, right? Because it's a way of thinking about sort of knowing your audience and tailoring your voice, not changing your voice, but tailoring your voice, or finding like the suitable piece, or the the right foot forward, to mix my metaphors, for that particular competition, that particular audience. And then, I think I agree with you completely that sort of win or not win, there's no losing, right? But win or not win, there's value in that too, because the recognition is encouragement. It's just validation that the work that you're doing is moving people. It's worthwhile, and it's something that they want to see and they want to recognize, and they want your voice out there. And that's a huge validation, especially from people who aren't in your network. And when you don't win, it's a reminder that rejection is a huge part of life as a creative, and the more you can get used to that, especially in low stakes way. It's not like I wrote my novel, I sent it to every agent I know, and they all turned it down, and now it's dead. It's just like I entered this competition and I didn't win the prize. So it gets you used to that journey, which involves success and sometimes like less success. And I think you develop the resilience needed to kind of pursue life as a creative, which is always about, it's hard work. You're always hitting the pavement. You're always like trying, and you're always pushing yourself to do something new. And the competitions give you those opportunities to try in, frankly, lower stakes ways. Yeah.
I really love what you said about learning how to express yourself in, like to your audience, and not to change what you're saying. Because when you say that to me, what I think of is like emotional fluidity, or like just learning how to communicate what you want to express in a way that's going to reach that audience. You're not going to change what you're trying to say, but you're going to learn how to get through to different audiences. So I really like that. I think that's one of the great benefits of competitions, and not something I would have thought of without that feedback, without that answer. Can you tell us about how do you prepare for a competition, or how do you get the participants? Do you help the participants prepare when they submit?
Well, we're working with teenagers. So we do a lot of workshops that are, this is our portal. This is this is the information you need to provide. These are the categories. Think about what category is the right category for you. I think even if, for adults though, when I think about the training we do for teens, that is applicable. It's always look at the guidelines, understand what things are being evaluated for, understand who's doing the evaluating. I can't tell you, for example, how many times I'm at teachers' conferences and teachers will come up to me and they'll complain that that their students in Alaska didn't win as many awards this year as they have in previous years, and they think I've done something to change the judging, and I have absolutely nothing to do with that. I'm very sorry. So understanding like who's doing the evaluating, and sort of preparing yourself specifically for that competition to make certain it's the right fit for you. And that you understand what they're recognizing. That's to me the most important piece of preparation, and then just making certain that it's very polished as you can make it, because you're not there to advocate for yourself.
Right. Yeah. Lauren, tell us, how do you prepare for a competition?
Yes, I mean, that's what Christopher says is a big piece of it is, if I'm submitting, there are contests for a full manuscript, there are contests for singular poems. And if you get to know the press or the readers or the judge, I find that very helpful. I often don't submit for a singular poem, I will say, because I find that and that's when I say, like, I don't know how, I didn't expect to win that award in college. That was a singular poem. And I just find that, like, how do you even pick what to send? Even if you know who the the readers are at this literary magazine and it's this judge. I like poetry that's so different from what I write. There's no telling what someone will like. So to submit to that for $10 versus a manuscript somewhere for 20, I'm going to, go with something where I can look at a press and see what types of books they publish. Could I see mine fitting in there? Then I think maybe the 10 or so readers who read ahead of sending to the judge, maybe they connect with the same type of book that I'm writing. And so that's who I would submit to. I think
You're really thinking about your audience here then. Like I've never participated in a competition, but I think off the bat, I would think, oh, I would pick what I think is the best stuff I wrote. But it sounds like what you're saying is think about your audience, think about the judge, think about the press that's hosting this competition, think about which pieces fit best for that audience, not necessarily the pieces that you think are your personal favorites out of your repertoire of works. Is that what you're saying?
sort of. I think I would only think of submitting the ones I think are my best. And then I would look for, if there's a competition that those wouldn't be right for, I'm probably just not going to enter it. Even if maybe something that I don't think is my best might fit in there, it's a risk reward with your submission fee. So I personally don't usually do it, but it's a mix of that. It's like, what do I think is good enough to win something? And then where could it go?
I learned a British phrase 2 weeks ago, and that phrase is a horse for every course. Yeah,
I like that.
There's a horse for every course. Tell us, what do you think are some of the barriers that people face that prevents them from participating in competitions? Do you think it's nerves, or is it financial, or is it they don't feel they have a good enough support network?
Yes.
Yes, all.
All of those things, right? So people are nervous to put themselves out there. Fear of rejection is real. Not knowing what competitions are out there or even how to find them can be a real challenge. And then having a support network to help you prepare your entry and help, just to help you navigate that process. Like all of those things are really challenging, and they can create barriers to participation. And certainly we see that in the Scholastic Awards. And actually, I think something Lauren said earlier is also interesting, because it is something that I hear from the teens too, that sometimes early success can also be a barrier, right? Because once you've won a prize at any level, you can either feel like you'll never do something as good again, and then that fear can get in the way of entering or putting yourself out there, or even writing, or you might be afraid to change, which can also be a challenge. This isn't quite an answer to your question, but it was an idea I wanted to put out there after Lauren's answer earlier. We hear from teens often that like they win a Scholastic Award and then they think that they should only write like that for the rest of their lives. And it's like, you're 16 years old. Please don't only write like that for the rest of your life. But that's true of, 46-year-olds or 86-year-olds too, right? We should always be changing and pushing ourselves. And we shouldn't let past success be a barrier to change and to being adventurous, both with our own creative work and then also with where we're willing to sort of put it.
So well said. I think it's not much new to add. I think all of those are barriers. I did notice a lot at Poetry Society of America, which is the nation's oldest poetry nonprofit. They're a big barrier. I mean, depending on kind of the age range of who's submitting, but sometimes it's even just technology. So places that account for that and will still let people send in a paper manuscript is helpful. A lot of presses don't allow that anymore. And of course, the submission fees in the poetry world, but that's getting better. On most contests, there will be, a line at the bottom that says, if this is a hindrance for you, please contact us. And we have a limited number of my words are escaping me, but you know the word I'm going for. Yes, waivers. Yes, thank you. So that's lovely. And in recent years, there was a big movement with undocupoets where actually being citizenship was a barrier and was a requirement. And that has changed at most, I would say most presses over the past 10 years, which has been amazing. So I think poetry presses have been pretty good at trying to listen and hear where the barriers are and remove them, but they are still there. And those emotional ones, they can't do much about that, but yeah.
So I think one of the greatest benefits and things that people can gain from a competition is gaining this feedback. And I think from at the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards, a lot of those participants, they keep in touch. Do you find that also in poetry competitions? Like, do you build when you have participated in them? Do you end up meeting the other participants also?
No,
you don't.
It remains just a solitary, just a bunch of cat people in there. Yeah. No, I mean, I think maybe sometimes you meet, depending on the press, you might meet your press mates or your editors, but it hasn't been my experience. Have you, to yours?
Yeah, I mean the kid, like we do events for the kids, and they do end up finding their people, and there's great value in that. I think especially for young people just starting out. But what I would say too is that community building is important, right? And even if the competitions that like you might enter might not have events, it might still be a kind of calling card to introduce yourself and build your network to other people who have won the prize in the past, or in your cohort, if there are multiple winners, to people involved with the competition. Community is hugely important, not just in the narrow careerist, I've got a network so people know who I am way. Of course, that's valuable. But I find that that's always valuable as like the side effect of creating genuine connections, because you want to know your people and be engaged with people who care about the same things that you do. And if you're guided by that, then you will naturally be networking and building professional connections that can come back to benefit you in the longer term.
Yes, I love that. And I think that less so with presses maybe, but with these organizations, there's a lot of community building there. For PSA, it's, all of the events that they do, and Mass Poetry runs the Massachusetts Poetry Festival and Student Days of Poetry and slams, and their whole focus is community and bringing people together. So I think there are, and when you win those contests, I think it gives you that maybe more confidence in having a voice in those spaces. So I think it does propel that.
Yeah, that's the theme of what we're doing here today, building community. What was my next question? I totally just flew out of my head. Oh, man, where am I? Don't know. Let's talk about the judging process. So, Chris, you mentioned you were a juror. Have you been, Lauren, were you a judge also? Or have you ever judged also?
I have been, yes, I have been a reader for Poetry Society of America's chapbook contests, which was a wonderful experience to read through those just heaps of manuscripts of new voices. Those prizes are for people who have not yet published a chapbook or full-length book. So it's really exciting to see all those first books and just be one small piece of that. It's a few readers that pass those on to the judge, and have also judged part of the Boston Poetry Slam, which was very fun, and a few things like that. So it's an honor to be in that role.
So let's talk about when you are judging a piece. Are there some things you do are there some things that competitions do to try to mitigate for bias, or are there things that you do that when you're reading something you think, oh, actually this one, maybe I'm a little biased on this piece for whatever reason. So are there some tactics that competitions use to account for bias, or that you do personally to account for bias, to recognize bias?
Well, they're always done anonymously, always read anonymously. And then I just try to, if I ever recognize a poem, like having read it, if I think, oh, I know who this poet is, I just take that out of my pile. I'm not part of the reader for that. And same thing, if ever anything, if I would feel some sort of bias or feel like I wouldn't be able to give something a neutral read, I just I wouldn't put that in a yes or no pile for myself. Or I guess, so to speak, I'd almost put it in the yes pile. So it just is, that's up to the other readers if that would move forward. I don't really recall that happening. But that's sort of the mindset of it is, and then there's small things, just even subconscious things, or, like read everything at the same time of day if you can. And because it's such a difference if you have read 20 manuscripts and it's 5 a.m., how do you feel about the 20th one versus how do you feel like, did your coffee hit yet? Or, so just trying to make sure things get a fair treatment from yourself as a person and as this subjective reader who's also just living their own life. I think that was the biggest thing for me reading those, is fitting it into my life on top of, the regular job you already have. The award season doesn't replace other parts of your job or your life. It's added on top of it. So it's just making sure that everything gets like a fair shake.
How many judges typically read a single piece of work?
It really differs everywhere. I would say it seems most common for poetry presses to have somewhere between like 5 and 10 early readers, and then a final judge.
I think at the Art and Writing Awards, this is a massive amount of submissions that you guys go through, right?
Yeah, we get over 300,000 entries. Of those entries, about 80,000 win some sort of regional prize. 2,000 to 3,000 win national medals, and about 200 win scholarships. So at that sort of highest level, those works have been read 7 or 8 times probably, and then at the regional level too. Recusals are hugely important, and we tell jurors that if they can't judge something fairly, that it's always better to set it aside than to act like you're not human, whether it's the subject matter or the writing style or the fact that you do recognize the work, which does happen, even in the Scholastic Awards, believe it or not, it does happen. And but I think what you were talking about in terms of like norming as a judge or juror is also hugely important. The folks who do these like reading exercises tend to have a very high volume of work to get through. It's very difficult to treat everything fairly or in the same way, just because we're not like that as humans. And even, the first work you read, you don't necessarily know what the baseline quality level is going to be. So, Small thing, but we invite all of our jurors to revisit all of their scores before they finalize them at the very end, because you look back and those first two works were maybe better or worse than you thought they were once you understand the full body of work. But this is another reason why, to bring it back to what to take away from competitions. And I'm not trying to be like, rah, competitions are great, like never be discouraged, but be encouraged. But I think that there is something to that. If you don't win, you do not know when the juror was reading your work, how tired they were, whether there was something in your work that maybe set them off for one reason or another. What I know from my experience is, I've judged video games and film festivals and writing competitions. I've judged a lot of things. And I know that there is a lot that is terrible. Sorry, that I'm just this is not going to win a prize. And then there's a lot that is really, it's I try to be unbiased, but there's a lot that's in the middle where it really does depend on how I'm feeling and what else I've read, and whether this is the third, we judge teen poetry, right? Is this the third poem I've read in this panel about my grandmother's hands as she rolled the dough for my ethnic stuffed pastry thing, right? Because they all write that. But then the stuff that's amazing, that I'm 10, put this through, that really has made an impression on me. So that's another way of saying if you put something out there that's good, that's not riddled with errors and sloppy, people are going to take it seriously. And if they give you a prize, that's because it really did make an impression on them, and you should take that as validation. Don't take the lack of prize as rejection.
Clearly, I think it's clear that competitions involve a lot of labor. Someone has to organize it. Some people have to go through submissions. What are some of the struggles? What do you think are some of the biggest struggles that competitions have to run them year after year? What are the pain points, so to speak, of what makes it hard to run them all the time? Is it labor? Is it money? Is it financial support? Is it just finding the jurors? What's the panel of jurors at Scholastic Art and Writing Awards?
We have a nice stable of jurors. I think that there are a lot of people out there who want to do this work. Hey, if any of you want to be a judge for the Scholastic Awards, we offer a very modest stipend, but it's a good way to expose yourself to teen creativity, and it's really validating. For us, far and away the biggest challenge is just the labor, right? The scale of it, 300,000 entries a year, and we're a team of 25. So in 2 weeks,
25 for 300,000.
Yeah. We have partners who run regional programs all around the country, but in 2 weeks, we're going to have major deadlines for most of the country. And there are going to be teens who are I don't know, is this a short story or is this a humor piece? And they're going to email us 2 hours before their deadline at 10 p.m. And we're not going to respond. Because we can't, because we get thousands of those, so, you wish that you could provide the kind of deep feedback and support that would be even more generative for your participants, but you can't do that just because it's a big lift to run something like this.
Yeah. That the amount of labor involved sounds, I had no idea it was 300,000 submissions. But even you're saying you might be reading 25 submissions a day. I'm looking at Lauren here.
Yes. There for the Chapbook Awards, there would be stacks of hundreds, but yeah, it's the way that I would find to make that manageable is I would wake up before work, and instead of that being my writing time, which is what I would try to make it, that would be my, manuscript reading time. So I would say, okay, for the next month, every day for 2 hours before work, I'm reading 20 poetry manuscripts. And then I'd shower and go to work. So, yeah, so it's a lot.
Do you feel competitions do you feel that you've seen some gems come out of competitions where you might not have seen them if it wasn't for a competition?
Yes, I mean, truly, the competition is such a huge part of the poetry world. It's really how most first books come into the world, just because of that structure of independent presses. And even through some, of the bigger publishers, they partner with organizations where they will publish. I'm trying to think who Thomas Dooley was with, but they partner with organizations who facilitate the award piece, but then publish it. So it's just such a huge piece. I mean, I don't think I know a poet who didn't come through in that way, really. I mean, the occasional few.
That's excellent. Chris, are there some gems that you think have come out of competitions that we would not know about otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for 7 years, but I've been looking at young people's creativity for like 20. So I am pretty jaded. I've seen a lot. As I said, I've read that like Grandmother's Hands poem about like 5,000 times, and you think I'm exaggerating. I'm really not. And yet, when I think about what I like most about my job, it's that every year I am still genuinely surprised by some of the work. And, by the time we get to actually having the kids at Carnegie Hall, I sit there and I think like, and no joke, I think like, oh, Sarah Fatima Muhammad might be our first female Muslim president one day, like she's 20 now and she's at Harvard and like, watch out world. Because I've read enough of her work to know that like, that is a mind that we all should be grappling with, and a perspective and a point of view. And it's really exciting to discover that in a teenager.
Yeah, I have participated as a judge when you guys have sent out to the employees to do that, and like some of it is really great. I haven't read 50,000 poems about dumplings, but there were a lot of them. We're winding down on our time here, so I have one last question before I open it up for Q&A. What piece of advice would you give to someone thinking about participating in a competition?
Be yourself. You should put work out there. I think Lauren said it well. Yes, it should be suited to the competition, but it still should be work that you're really proud of, that you feel like is representative of who you are. Don't try to win competitions just to win a competition. I mean, we see a lot of that in the Scholastic Awards. There are a lot of kids who are trying to pad their college applications. That work is tired and boring, and it doesn't excite me when I think about why I do what I do. But when I see like truly original voices that feel like they're offering a fresh perspective on things that are challenging me, I mean, that's thrilling for me. And I think it's a more authentic experience for the participant as well.
Right, because you can tell if they're just doing it to pad and if they're being authentic and passionate, right?
I agree with that. I also would say send it when you feel it's done. I think for a lot of us, our work is never done. I can't remember that lovely quote about it's never done, it's just abandoned. But try not to send too soon, or even just within a deadline. Like if there's a deadline for a contest that's 3 months away and you're really excited about it and you just wrote an amazing poem, maybe just wait 1 month and just see like if you revise before then. Because you want to be sending not just your best work, but send it when you feel like I've done all I can here and I feel really good about this. And if it doesn't win, I know it's because it wasn't a match and it wasn't, this poem's time. It wasn't because you would have changed X, Y, and Z. I think that's just a way of feeling, that helps with that feeling of not feeling a personal rejection about the work, because that was good work that you sent.
I like that. Maybe that horse wasn't ready to race yet.
Exactly, yes.
Horse for every course. Doesn't have to race every race.
That's right.
We're gonna open it up to Q&A. If anyone has a question, I'll bring the mic to you. Oh my God, I gotta walk all the way around. I'm sorry.
So most of these competitions, the people who win the competition, do they get published at the end, or is it just a scholarship or something like that?
Are you interested in either one specifically?
Either one, sure.
Well, for us, that's easy. There are 80,000 regional winners, so a lot of that work, it's just the recognition, and we do events to celebrate all of the winners. We do publish a subset of writing works.
Like a collection of them?
A collection, like an anthology. We used to call it the best teen writing. One of the things I changed in my tenure was to rename it, because we're not trying to find the best work to publish. We're trying to find work that is representative of what's going on out there in the country. If you want, we have extra copies of last year's publications. We can share them. I should have brought them today, but I didn't, but we can share them after the fact. And we do offer scholarships to a subset of kids directly. And then also colleges and universities set aside money for Scholastic Award winners that they give.
That's great. What did you change the name to?
And this is kind of standard in this world. We just use a title of one of the works as a title of or a line from one of the works as the title of the anthology.
Gotcha. And I have three questions, actually. And the second question is, you said you've seen a lot of work and it falls in different categories of quality. What would you say percentage-wise is of stuff that is good, of all that you read?
No, most of it's good. Most of it's good. I mean, there are definitely, I mean, I would say that there's probably about about 20% of the work that I read, it's just like, wow, you really are wasting your parents' money. But that's
like basic grammar and punctuation's not there.
Yeah, or things that just like don't at all conform to our participation terms. But that is like a baseline thing. Like, read the participation terms. Make certain that you're following the rules.
20% of like 100,000. I don't.
But there's a lot that's good. I think there is a real difference though between what truly stands out, so like when I'm scoring a panel, I would say like it really is it naturally falls into a bell curve. Where it's like, if I'm reading like 15 works in a panel, like 2 or 3 might be 9s or 10s. 3 might be like
the biggest part is like medium work.
And that's the hardest part to sift through as a juror.
I actually had a question for both of you. Out of all the things that you've judged, like if I asked you right now, all right, is there something that comes to your mind that like has stuck with you that you read that just like still, I don't know, whatever piece it was that you still think about or you still remember out of all the things?
Yes, mine is a poet named Annalisa Sotelo through the PSA chapbooks, and that chapbook was beautiful. And she has full-length books now as well. I don't remember the titles of them, but Annalisa Sotelo, beautiful.
A single poem, that's a toughie. There have been a few. I mentioned. I mean, probably the young woman I mentioned before, Sarah Fatima Muhammad. She wrote some beautifully original work about um, about the women and her mother in the village that her parents are from in India, and what her what her work explored, particularly in that portfolio, was this idea of a place and not approximating a place. So, this is a village that is so remote that, like, you have to drive like 12 hours from the nearest city in India to get to this village. And the poetry was all about trying to capture the specificity of that place, not as an approximation of like rural village in India, but like that place, those people, those women praying together. And it's beautiful.
That sounds cool.
Hello. I have two questions, starting with the less fun one, I think. And I hate talking about AI, but I am morbidly curious. How has AI impacted the submissions you've seen? Do you have like checkpoints to try to keep that work out? Like, how do you deal with that?
I am not currently judging anything, so I can't speak to it from that point. I'll pass the mic, but I can say I'm currently submitting quite a bit, and on all the guidelines, most now say we won't accept work that was created by AI. There are a few places that say, we will if it's not fully written by AI, but if you've interacted with it in an artistic way. I don't know what those ways might be. Maybe someone does like some sort of call and response. I don't know. But some say like if you've used it in an artistic way and you call attention to that and we know, you can still submit. But most it's just not allowed.
A huge struggle for us, again, given the volume. I mean, originality in general is a struggle. Plagiarism is an issue in the awards, and we do our best to identify work that isn't original. Originality is also one of our core values. So, in many ways, what we have done in response to the proliferation of generative AI is to double down on that. But with like a little bit of realism. So we hadn't completely banned the use of generative AI until this year. We now allow it in the ideation process. The reality is that, like, it's in this thing, and I can ask my phone a question and it might be using AI to answer that question. It might be helping me think of a synonym. How different is that from using a thesaurus? I will let you tell me what you think, but there is a difference in our opinion between that or doing a little bit of research. Like, again, how different is it looking at Wikipedia than asking ChatGPT about some background on something that you're writing about? But the actual writing, we say, has to be original, and when we suspect the use of AI or when it's alleged, we subject the work to rigorous AI checking, but it's very difficult because even, it's like if something comes back as 60% likelihood that it was AI, the reality is that I hate to tell all of you, I can write like a beautiful email and run it through that checker, and I might get 80% likelihood that it's generative AI and it's completely human made, right? So, it's like there are no easy answers to this one, except as I think a creative community centering values. right? Like, and the value of human creativity is central to what we're all trying to do.
And my second question is a little bit of a two-parter. You mentioned earlier that a barrier to entry for a lot of people is just not knowing that competitions are out there. First part of the question is, how would you recommend finding competitions? Second part, how would you recommend finding opportunities to judge competitions?
Great questions. I find poets and writers to be a great resource for finding out about competitions. And there's a section in the back specifically for that. It's a magazine, but also online, pw.org. And you can search by genre. I know I've been focused on poetry because that's my main jam. But if you write short stories or fiction or anything else, you can tailor it to that there. And also there are just some great sites like that. Chill Subs and Sub Club have great search engines and resources and newsletters. And I also, will always take a look at the poets that I enjoy reading and see what they've won. And go check those out, especially if I feel like we write in a similar way. I try to use that as a guide.
And then, in terms of trying to find opportunities to be a juror, judge for the Scholastic Awards. We tap our networks, right? Anybody who's in this room, I think, is probably qualified to judge writing for the awards, and build community, right? So, one of the things that, art is done synchronously, writing is done asynchronously, but we do host readathons where we bring jurors together to do their reading in the same space on particular days. If you want to judge for us, maybe do that, and then you'll meet other jurors and they'll talk about where else they do this work. So community, just having connections is the best way to learn more about this ecosystem.
I think we have time.
It's not really a question, but about the AI poetry stuff. I've used ChatGPT to write poetry just directly, and I don't know how original it is because I can start with ChatGPT and tell him I have a certain feeling about something. Let's start a poem about it. So I'll talk to ChatGPT for hours about the way that it writes, the words that it chooses, how the words are put together. This doesn't really represent how I felt about that certain thing. Let's edit this part. And after several hours of working with ChatGPT, I would say that we have made an original poem that kind of fits what I wanted. I guess what I wanted to write, but I didn't know that it would come out the way it did with ChatGPT. So it just kind of food for thought, I guess. Just in that particular scenario, I do think that I'm the author of that poem. But yeah, ChatGPT did help along the way. So I don't know if that's good or bad.
Yeah, and I think that's it's a good point. And when generative AI blew up, we convened a task force to study this and advise us. And we leveraged our board of directors, and they brought in lawyers and artists and thought leaders. And what was interesting was that the task force was actually really open to the use of AI because they were seeing how really thoughtful artists were using it as a creative tool, and that's valid. Fortunately and unfortunately, in a way, for us at the Scholastic Awards, teenagers are not. So teenagers don't have the sophistication to use generative AI for the most part as a genuine tool for creating original work. We are not seeing that. We're seeing it mostly for cheating, and you can kind of tell. But I do agree with you that setting aside the very real questions about like what work has been cannibalized in the process of creating the generative AI mind that is your collaborator, that thoughtful adults can do creative work with it. So, we should just buckle up and hope that they don't take over the world, our robot overlords. Is that how we're going to end?
Oh, that was that's a whole nother program, but we don't have a whole nother hour.
Yeah, I mean, I will just say that I do think I agree with you that AI can be used in interesting ways. And I mean, I think as artists, it is actually helpful removing some of the barriers that we talked about. I mean, there's a financial barrier in being able to sometimes hire a writing coach or work with a developmental editor or a copy editor or that kind of thing. And it can be those things. And I think that is really valuable. I mean, I've written elementary grade verse novel all in meter, and I asked it to scan it and tell me where does my meter trip up, because scanning meter, even though I took a class in that in my grad program, it's very hard and it's not my strong suit, and I don't even know what I would have to pay someone to, and where would I find some? I mean, I took a class in it and I can't, so it scans my meter. So, it does then say, do you also want me to rewrite all the places where I think you tripped up? And I'm like, no, slow down, just, but, right. It's yes. I'm like, I just want your help. Yeah. Educate me, but it can be very useful. So I do think it's fair to bring up, but I can see how, I mean, not everyone's going to want to stop it. So as the facilitator of the awards or judging things, it's where's that fine line and how do you communicate that?
There is no rule, but it's, what makes something original? We're all inspired by things. So it's all art, not science. I wish I could say that we had a rule where this is the threshold where it comes back from an AI checker and we say disqualified. But it's not that clean.
This came to a very exciting place, and we don't have the time today to delve into this, but we will in future programs. Thank you so much, Chris and Lauren, for sharing your experience today. And I really appreciate both of you being here. I think we all appreciate both of you being here and creating that community that we've been talking about all night. Before we depart, I want to point out that the next New York Book Forum event is our holiday party. It's on December 10th at Prime Catch on 46th Street. And the event is free for members and $25 for non-members. And if you aren't already a member, I think membership is $25. Crazy. Yes, it is. Yeah. So I hope if you are going, I will see you there. Let's give our speakers another round of applause. And thank you everyone for attending. Thank you for being here and having such wonderful, thoughtful questions, being part of this conversation. We love having them with you.